So my first question is, have you watched any of the pieces that we've done already?
I've watched a few minutes of one of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why haven't you watched the rest of it? You know the story anyway,
Well, I'm an intimate player in the story, so
Okay.
I know much of what has gone on and or was present when a lot of it went on. So
Okay.
I don't think some things don't need to be revisited.
Okay. So let's go back to your first, the first memory of Emily's misdemeanor. Her mum was at the cottage, and I guess she called you. Did she? Is that the first time you heard
I
about
believe so. My recollections of the exact moment of revelation are a little sketchy, but needless to say, around the same time that, or shortly after she was arrested, I received a phone call that she was describing the circumstances in as much detail as was known at the time.
So what was your thought? What went through your mind as a parent at that point? I mean, I've got grown-up kids, and what went?
To be honest, I think in my mind, Emily had been walking along an edge for a while, and this was the moment she fell off.
Right. So, because she'd been a party girl, right? She was quite a party girl, and she was kind of bouncing about all over the place between Toronto and Hamilton. And
yeah, she was, going here, going there, and some of her travel schedule I felt was a little suspect.
Right.
Gave me lots of questions about why you would go to this particular destination with these type of people, and I raised those issues with her at the time.
So, cutting straight to the chase, then, do you think this was the first time? Do you think that was the first time she'd done that?
Probably not. I don't think so. I think, again, just looking at the nature of her travel, I don't know for sure, but I suspected that it probably wasn't her first time.
Yeah, because that was a common consensus across the family, really. I think. I mean, I've asked everybody the same question, and everybody said, "Yeah, we don't know," right? Yeah. For sure. Okay, so do you have a favourite amongst your kids?
No, I really don't. Every one of them brought a distinct. Has a distinct personality. They brought a tremendous amount of joy in their own individual way. So I never could say that there was an actual favorite. I ended up spending more time with one or more of them but that was just a combination of circumstances at the time.
So when Emily was growing up, I guess, was she like a fun, bubbly child and great? Because to me, she seems like she's plugged into electricity all the time, right? She's like constantly on the go.
Yes, she was a very active child. Always was kind of the impish grin on her face and, tearing around here and there. And always, again, very energetic. But she was also, she got to a stage, distinctly recall in grade 8, first half of grade 8, she was this wonder child. She sang in a school play. Teachers raved about her primary teacher at the time in particular. And then within about 6 months later, the same teacher was crying, saying she didn't know what had happened to her. And that was the start of it.
So that was really grade 8, so she was just going into senior school then, I guess? No, what's senior?
No, she was going to go on to high school at that point.
Right, going towards high school, that's right. And she was just, do you think that was like an early kind of maturation, or early becoming a...
We really couldn't figure it out at the time, because it was such a dramatic, you had this honor student, again, someone who was heavily involved in school, helping out other kids, reading with other disadvantaged students, and then to this hellion that...
So give me an example of what you mean by hell, because I mean,
again, the moment was when the teacher brought us in, and she was crying. She was literally crying.
Wow.
She's saying, because Emily had been such a just amazing child in the first term, was this someone she didn't know anymore. And we were seeing indications of that at the time. We couldn't put our finger on it either.
So was that like a, I don't know what you call it, teenage angst, whatever. So was that a kind of upward or descentward
I would certainly call it more of a descent.
Right.
Because it led to kind of all sorts of acting out in different behaviors, and we tried to set boundaries, and they were completely ignored. And she would vanish for the weekend and then show up at 4:00, to read at Mass, for example. So you would get an occasional text saying that she was fine, we didn't need to worry, but that wasn't the point. The point was she had no intention of coming home. And
what
she
age?
would show up, I don't know, sorry?
What age was this?
15, I think, 15,
Right.
16.
Right.
So,
Yeah, that's a harrowing age, actually, when you've got a wild child.
yeah, because we thought the oldest one had given us problems because on one occasion she snuck out of the upstairs window, in grade 8 or something, or grade 9, whatever it was, and that was about as worst as it got with her.
Okay, so coming back to, so you get this phone call says Emily's been arrested, and do you remember when you first saw her after that?
I think it was in the provincial jail, Milton.
It's provincial jail, right?
Yeah.
So you went out with her mum and both saw her.
I met her mother there, and then we saw her together.
And how was that? How did that?
Well, it's as any parent, you're walking into a secure prison facility for the first time in your life to visit your child. And you don't know what you're walking into, you don't know what your child's going to look like, you don't know if she's been beat up, you don't know any of the details really, other than the basic facts that were the charge that was being alleged. And we certainly wondered who we'd see and what we'd see, and it's a sickening feeling, really.
Yeah, I can really imagine that. And then she eventually gets released into your mother's care, and the pair of you have to find a bail bond for her, right? And you kind of manage to raise that, and she comes back to her mother's residence. At which point, I'm gathering she's still not really grasped how serious it is.
No, I'm not sure at what point it finally sunk in that she was in some pretty significant difficulty. And because it was, this is just something, we just kind of go along and we'll continue to live life as it needs to be lived. And one thing I don't think she really truly understood was the impact it had, certainly on her mother, who she was living with. And, the fear really that went along with that. Because, if she didn't grasp the severity or the significance of what she was facing, and ultimately there was a breach that she was arrested for, then I don't know that it ever sunk in that, we were on the hook for $50,000 if the Crown chose to pursue it.
Right.
So there was some pushback from Emily, certainly, at the time, saying, she didn't like the boundary. She hadn't had any for the previous number of years. So this, even though it was kind of house arrest, and she had conditions, it really didn't, I don't think it really sank in that, you're facing some pretty significant difficulty, and you're only making it worse if you don't take it seriously.
Because she was going everywhere with a note, wasn't she? She had to have notes saying where she could go, every time she went to Toronto, because she was still doing her business at this time, her social media stuff.
Yeah, I think her conditions allowed her to go to her place of business.
Right.
But she kind of, took latitude with what defined business.
What that meant, right.
Yeah.
She always pushed the boundaries, right?
Yeah, Emily always pushed the boundaries.
So she was like that?
Well, she was certainly like that in her mid-teens.
So she comes back from, because you spend this time, so she's at home for what, 2 years? Best part?
Yeah, I think it was the better part of 2 years. We just felt the longer this thing dragged on, actually the better. And because I had told her early on that she was pleading guilty, but because to fight it when the evidence in my mind was so incontrovertible that
why would you, right? Really?
Well, you're just going to waste more dollars, and the outcome would likely be worse.
Okay. So she decided to enter a guilty plea, and then both the prosecutor and your lawyer kind of agreed that, you know, they should go for like a 4-year.
Well,
case.
she did. You know, she was enrolled in a number of programs after her arrest and during her period of kind of being at home.
Right.
You know, an eating disorder program. There was the other program to deal with at ChemH to deal with, alcohol and drug abuse and that kind of stuff, and trying to manage those. And simply, it was the intent to really try and demonstrate that there was a good kid here who deserved a second chance, and that a long period of incarceration wouldn't serve society very well, and it certainly wouldn't serve her very well.
So in the midst of all this, or at some point just before this happened, you separated from her mother, right? And so do you think that had much of an impact on her? Do you think that?
No, I would say no. I know
Okay.
I know it's been raised from time to time as kind of a causal factor. We make our own choices in life.
Yeah, for sure.
And so my relationship with her mother, or the breakup of the marriage, I don't think, in my mind, it certainly impacted all the girls, just because the family was breaking up, or the family as we knew it.
Yeah.
That dynamic was ending. Okay. But to extend that rationale to, I'm going to fly to this island and I'm going to intergage with these people. No, I don't buy that.
Yeah. So how old was she when you broke up?
Sorry?
How old was she when you and her mother separated?
I want to say maybe 2000 marriage ended in 2014, July of 2014.
Okay, so fairly recent then, really.
Yeah, and she was an adult. All the girls were in their mid-20s by that point in time.
Okay. So let's jump forward to, the day has arrived that you're going to court and you know that she's probably not coming out of there, right? Chances are high. How was that? I mean, is that a memorable day for you?
For all the wrong reasons, yes. But, you know, it brought closure to a whole piece, you know, the whole piece from the moment of her arrest to the decision made by the court. That was actually closure in a large way, because you had, in reality, you had turned the corner. So now we had moved, even though it was incarceration, this was the penalty phase, what you will. You knew that the focus was going to be on kind of preparing her, given we already knew it was going to be like 10 months, so which wasn't a long time, that, you know, things would move fairly quickly towards rehabilitation and kind of preparing her for kind of life on the outside, you know, as things moved along. So that was closure for me.
Okay. So she was sentenced for 4 years, and then with a chance of parole in however long. I don't know what they actually say. It'd be interesting to figure out what that is. And then so she gets led away, and then you kind of go home. Is it like leaving your child somewhere? Did you feel like it was just like?
I didn't feel like kind of this utter sense of loss.
Right.
I knew she was in very secure hands. You know, I didn't like, obviously, when you're going into a federal prison, there's risks involved, and I think everybody knows prison stories or hears prison stories about what goes on, and you know, I think but it was fairly early on. We didn't get to visit, I think, for maybe a month, but once we went through the first visit, then you realize that it was much different than what is depicted in the movies and that type of productions and stuff. So it was still secure. It was still, but when she was telling us about a lot of the opportunities that she'd been given to do, either whether it was the singing program, whether it was kind of working with drywall or whatever, there was a fair bit of, there seemed to be numerous activities and programs to kind of get them focused in a different direction, and that's what she needed, quite frankly.
So really, it was a rehabilitation program that could have come sooner, really, right, in your mind?
Well, you just really wish she had it had dawned on her that, the road she was going down wasn't going to lead anywhere except where she was. But I guess it just took her falling off that cliff.
It's interesting that out of her mother and the Heather, isn't it? I think it's Heather we spoke to, and her friend, like, none of the others felt that it was an inevitable path, but you're quite pragmatic about it, and I think your opinion is that she was heading in that direction anyway. Something was going to happen.
Yeah, I'd heard enough from from her sisters. I had heard from some of her cousins. Some of the and we went on the occasional dinner where I met some of her friends in Toronto, and I was never impressed.
Right.
And I just thought, these are the wrong people. These are the people that you'd hope your kids would never associate with. But she gravitated towards that. It felt, it gave her a sense of, I'm not sure what it gave her a sense of, but a being or purpose or what have you. But these people were not, as best as I could tell, heading towards stellar jobs or careers or families or anything like that you hope your kids are going to move towards. Right. They just seem to be going in a different direction altogether, and it didn't seem to have any promise at the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, she was definitely, by her admission, she was definitely in the drugs, alcohol, party scene deeply at that point anyway, really. So, perhaps that was an inevitability, really, that something would stop.
Yeah, I don't, she was trying to assure us about, a lot of it was related to her business and some other stuff. I didn't buy any of it, actually.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm quite interested in your job.
Sorry?
So I'm quite interested in what you do for a living. So you work in a cemetery, right?
I work for the Catholic Church.
Yeah, so that makes more sense to me, because obviously this is a Catholic school, and I know that the bishop had come to her, to your Emily's arraignment. Yeah,
well, Emily was, of the three, if the bishop had a favorite of the three girls, it was Emily. Emily.
So I mean, you're obviously a religious person.
I would say pretty religious, yeah.
So Catholic Church. So, did you feel that impacted you, kind of, in a spiritual sense at all, that she'd done that, or it was very much her making her own decisions?
I needed to pray a hell of a lot more.
Sorry?
So I needed to pray a hell of a lot more. But it didn't affect my beliefs. I mean, I've dealt with, the church deals with people that, its mission is to deal with people that are, whether they're bereaved, whether they, are in need, or they're hungry, whether they're in a battered women's shelter. There's a ton of work being done kind of on the front lines in the city that the church is doing. And so everybody has a story.
Yeah.
She just happened to be part of mine.
I think that's probably a brilliant way of looking at it, actually. It's probably the best way you can look at it. So that explains why the bishop was there, or why the
and he's been a close friend of our families for 30 years.
Right, excellent.
So he wrote a letter in her, as a reference. And and he was there present, so that was a tremendous gift to her.
Yeah, absolutely. absolutely.
In that moment when
Yeah.
the judge could look out and he saw her grandparents there, saw all my siblings, and saw a bishop there, the retired bishop, then I think the judge knew, she had she had support, and when he looked at the stuff she had done in preparation, and avoided the trial, accepted the consequences, then I think that was a significant part of the justification for the lower end of the sentence that she got.
Okay, so let's skip forward to when she's released. So when did you first see her? So she gets out, I think her mother picked her up, okay? And then how soon after that did you see her?
I think I saw you pretty quickly, or saw her fairly quickly afterwards.
Okay.
Obviously it was a time of happiness and a little bit of trepidation.
So what were you worried about?
Again, even though she was out of the prison, freedom brings its own challenges, especially to someone who hasn't had it or enjoyed it for a period of time. And I was anxious that she not put herself offside. She had her obligations as a part of her parole, and you just wanted things to be calm and have her go about her business, do what she's required to do until those obligations fall away.
So how do you think she's done?
I think she's done remarkably well.
Do you feel she's changed?
I think she's changed to a significant degree. Okay. I think she has a completely different purpose or motivation that drives her. Do I think she's tempted by what went before? Probably. But she does have to. I think she's still maturing. I think she's still learning. I think she's still needs to. Gravitas would be the word that I'm looking for.
Right.
She has to appreciate that. I would say she's not quite there yet, but if she, is sincere in her, quote, conviction of changing her life, then, then she will be a runaway success. And because she has that capability. She has the drive, she has the energy, and she has the talent. She's a remarkable child. She really is. And I'm very proud of her. But I want to make sure that it is true in her heart. And the only one who knows that for sure is her.
Time will tell.
Time will tell.
Time will tell.